Hello and welcome to a little bit of a later 67 Hail Hail tonight. We're live on the channel talking about a very thrilling 1-0 win over Hearts in the Scottish Premiership that moves us to within 4 points of Rangers. There's so much to talk about and we're going to get right into it. Now, the reason I'm having a wee chat first with you today is because Hamish has been running around all over Celtic Park tonight, watching the game, speaking to Ange Postecoglou. Hamish, you were in the post-match press conference. What's the latest on the likes of injuries to, Stephen Welsh, Anthony Ralston, others in the team, Jota, of course? What's the latest?
Hi, John. First of all, I need to say the background is very poor, mate. It doesn't quite live up to mine there, but we move on. It was quite a good experience actually, getting to chat to Ange and find out what he thought of the game. In terms of injuries, if you want to start with that, Jota, the quote paraphrasing from Ange was that Jota didn't think he told Ange that he didn't think it was particularly bad. So that's obviously positive news. Ange unsurprisingly said that Anthony Ralston's was the worst of the three, and Stephen Welsh, I actually can't remember exactly what Ange said, but I don't think it was a major concern. The good news in the centre defensive part of the team is that Cameron Carter-Vickers will be back certainly Brilliant. On Sunday for Dundee United. The final bit of injury news was Gigi Giakoumakis 2 to 3 weeks away, which is maybe one we can talk about in a few minutes if we feel we want to, because it feels like he's been 2 to 3 weeks away for a wee while. Maybe a little bit concerned about that. I think it was a knee injury, but overall, Ange fighting, not quite literally fighting, but with words, fighting with some well-known journalists in there. I think PLZ's Peter Martin had a bit to say to Ange. There was actually a wee bit of a kind of exchange between the two, when Peter Martin was bringing up the opportunities that Hearts had in the second half, and Ange didn't take too kindly to that. He kind of asked Peter Martin, what are you talking about? What chances in particular? And then he mentioned the fact that we had missed several chances as well. I think the James Forrest one late on was the one that Ange really mentioned, which I think is a fair point. I think in general, the media will probably spin it out as another really narrow, plucky win. Maybe not plucky, but a narrow, ugly win for Celtic tonight, when I think in reality, as much as Hearts did miss two really good opportunities, we also missed, 2 or 3 in the second half, with that Forest one being the main one.
So it's been interesting since full time. You might not be aware of some of the comments that have been flying about. Robbie Nielsen is fuming, absolutely fuming, in a quite hilarious way, saying that he would go to jail if he was allowed to say the things he wanted to say. So that sums up his fury. He was annoyed. What was Ange's vibe like in general? He had a bit of a feisty conversation on BBC Radio Scotland with Jane Lewis as well. What was his vibe in the room, apart from what you've just said?
I think he's certainly finding his feet with the media, so to speak. He was actually, it's funny you mentioned Robbie Nielsen. Just quickly, Robbie Nielsen, the quietest talker I've ever heard in my life. But that's a side note. He didn't want to mention referees too much. He did mention them, but he got the impression he had a lot more he wanted to say. And he said he had complaints after their draw at Ibrox about the standard of refereeing, and he said that he had to write a letter or something to the SFA following that, so he wouldn't be making any comments because he didn't fancy writing that letter again. So that was Robbie Nielsen's vibe. Generally pretty happy, I think, with the way his team played in the second half. Fair enough, I thought Hearts were pretty good actually in the second half. Ange, first question I think from Peter Martin was to do with the refereeing decisions. Robbie Nielsen said this, and Ange's retort was, sounds like a question for Robbie Nielsen. And then a wee kind of awkward exchange when he then kind of put it to Martin that had the referee been the deciding factor in tonight's game, and Peter Martin actually said, yes, that's my question to you, and Ange then said, yeah, not the game I was watching. So it was genuinely quite tasty, and I'm not surprised to hear that Ange has been having it in with a few other people tonight. He clearly, I think it's fair to say, Ange feels Celtic are getting a wee bit of tough treatment from the press at the moment. Every game, as I say, is a narrow victory. This could have happened. Celtic could have dropped points today. When I think in reality, as much as Hearts did have chances in that second half, I thought Celtic still deserved their win tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get onto our own thoughts about the game because I've got loads to say about this match. This was actually one of the most eventful games of the season so far in many ways. Was there anything else though from Ange that you want to cover before we move on? And what did you get to ask him yourself if you managed to?
Yeah, so the main point that I wanted to ask him about was, in my opinion, Celtic's two, possibly three best performers tonight were all players who we hadn't seen in weeks. Starfelt, Rogic, and I thought Adam Montgomery was really good when he came on today. So I wanted to ask Ange, what it says about these guys and what it says about the what's going on at Lennoxtown. That three guys who have missed so much football can come in and play so well in their first game back. And yeah, he didn't have anything, earth-shattering to say on that, but he certainly agreed that they both, the question I put to him was Rogic and Starfelt, but I think it's fair to add Montgomery in as well as a player who came in and did well. I'm actually trying to remember what else. I asked him three questions. I asked him about the control in the game as well. Whether, I felt Celtic really controlled the game in the first half. And as we know, Ange speaks about control at virtually every, press conference. It's something that's clearly very important to him. And I asked him whether he felt that we'd lost it a little bit in the second half. And he did agree with that. I don't think many people would disagree. So, generally, I'd say quite a prickly kind of post-match press conference with Ange. Clearly not all too happy with what's happening. The treatment Celtic are getting from the press at the moment.
It's very interesting. Ange was probably the most fired up I've seen him, even on the touchline tonight. He was very involved in the game. There was one incident where the ball clearly went out for a throw-in from a Hearts player, and he was right in the fourth official's ear. And I like that. I feel like, my likening this December period is like Ange is taking us into the trenches for the next 4 weeks. And I want Ange to have a bit of that. And I think that some of that might be able to take a bit of pressure off some of the players too, some of the talking points around the players, because this is going to be a desperately difficult month. And I think having Ange there, being a proper leader front and centre, will do us the world of good. Just moving on to the game, Hamish, what did you think of the game in general? I thought Celtic had complete control of that match in the first half, and then Hearts obviously come into it. There was a bit of tension in the stadium, but it was exciting. It was a brilliant watch for me. It was one of the most entertaining games of the season for myself. And ultimately, I thought Celtic in the last 10 minutes responded well to that period of Hearts pressure and finished the game well.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was certain similarities with the game on Sunday where after, having that one goal lead going into the last 20, 25 minutes, we did have a spell in both games where the opposition kind of had a good, spell in the game. I think Hearts' spell tonight was more substantial than Aberdeen's, certainly. I mean, Aberdeen didn't create a lot on Sunday, but I think a real positive sign is that Celtic are seeing out games really well in the last 5 minutes, last 10 minutes. We really keep the ball well. I thought as much as we were quite slack at points in that second half, I thought the last 5 minutes we really shored it up, and Hearts didn't have a sniff. I mean, it was the same with Aberdeen on Sunday. We had the ball. We had the ball deep in their part of the pitch. So I thought that was good. I thought we started really well. I really was purring at the start of that match. I felt, I spoke earlier in the week on the channel about wanting to get back to that level that we showed at the start of the season, that run of 4 or 5 games, and we've not really hit that level since, I don't think. Now, I know there's reasons for that, and Scott McDonald reckoned that we won't see it in December just because December's December and all these games. But I thought we saw it for the first, whatever it was, 10, 15 minutes today. Hearts were really pushing up high. It was a clear instruction from Nielsen to I suppose, push Celtic up and limit the space in midfield. But what it did give us was loads of space in behind, and I just thought it was a dream for Kyogo. It didn't really materialise, really. Kyogo didn't really have too many runs in. But I thought generally we started the game well. We can't really shy away from the fact that second half I thought we were quite slack.
The second half was a lot more difficult, but to be honest, I think there are mitigating factors for that. I think that Ange likes to use his bench in these matches to help control the game, and he was obviously forced into 3 substitutions that he might not have made ordinarily. And I thought some players did look a bit tired in that second half, although did show a bit of control towards the end, as we've mentioned. So I can kind of see the reasons why we kind of lost control of the game a little bit. I wasn't too concerned about that. what heartened me is, a lot of people have said a lot of nice things about Celtic this season, and there's been some problems with the team as well. But I like some of the other traits that we're starting to see. Now, for instance, I thought Kyle Starfelt was outstanding tonight. And not in the sense of being incredibly silky on the ball, although I thought he was efficient when he did have the ball. But he just had that kind of a bit of a warrior mentality that I feel like we've sometimes been missing in that defence of late. Last ditch tackles, getting onto the end of headers, and I thought Stephen Welsh similarly before he went off was a true warrior in that defence too. So I like seeing those traits from Celtic at this point. Over this, this next month, it's those kind of performances that are going to dig us out here. And obviously, when you've got a player like Tom Rogic, Hamish, who I thought, made a huge difference to the performance tonight in that first half. I don't think it was a surprise. It was one of our better half hours or better 45 minutes, in recent weeks, especially since Rogic has been injured, because he's just a focal point in that final third, isn't he?
Yeah.
And you can see the space that others get around him, because I think opponents are terrified of Tom Rogic, and so they try to close him down as quickly as possible. And it was leaving space for the likes of Kyogo and Forrest, who, Forrest should have had 2 goals tonight.
Poor game tonight, I thought, Forrest. Yeah.
So, there's pleasing aspects to the players coming back, and it is heartening to kind of hear Ange say that perhaps a couple of injuries aren't so serious as we thought, apart from Ralston. So we'll need to wait and see on those. But I was pretty pleased with tonight. I was pretty pleased, although that second half was about as nervous as I've been in the Scottish Premiership this season. I thought, I was impressed with Celtic in the end.
But that nervousness just comes from the let's face it, precarious position that we're in. I mean, I think Celtic have shown really good form over the last few games, but that really slack start to the season we had with those 3 away defeats and the drop points we had at home to Dundee United, just in that kind of period, has meant that we don't have a lot of wiggle room here. We started tonight 7 points behind. In all likelihood, Sunday we're going to be going into 7 points behind as well. There really isn't much room for Celtic to slip up in one of these games, but I think that itself brings pressure, and it brings that nervousness inside the stadium. But it's also brilliant. I mean, last season we didn't have that at all, and we didn't even have fans in the stadium. It was just a nothing season. Now that that tension is back, and that's what we all love about sport. When stuff matters, when it matters, if you lose, if we lost a goal, a late goal tonight, we'd be gutted right now. We'd be fearing the worst for the season. But it was huge, and I think Ange has spoken about that so much as well. People ask him about the pressure of managing at Celtic. The guy absolutely loves it. There's not a place on earth he would rather be than in that environment right now, and it's certainly going to get even more substantial in the coming days. You were almost fighting with folk on Twitter over an offside, I believe. So I've not seen it again. So do you want to address this?
Hamish, I'm almost always fighting with people on Twitter these days. Going quite poorly for you. Not with Celtic supporters, it has to be had, with supporters of other teams. I seem to wind people up on a fairly consistent basis these days. Right, we need to address the goal and the so-called blatant offside, as Chris Boyd said on the television this evening. For me, I don't think it was offside for the simple reason of Kyogo was probably past the Hearts defence, but for me, he's at least level with the ball and arguably a bit behind the ball. And the way the offside rule goes is if you're level or behind the ball, then it's not offside. It's as simple as that. You need to be both beyond the ball and beyond the last defender. So I didn't think it was offside. I can see why some people would think it was tight. I think the people that are saying it was a blatant offside and he was yards offside either don't understand the rule or are willfully misinterpreting it for their own attention. So I just wanted to put that out there because I wasn't too fussed with it. And I think the way Robbie Nielsen's had a meltdown tonight, Hamish, I know you were in the room with him, but I'm talking about his broadcast media appearance on Sky Sports, etc. was a bit silly. He was also raging with the fact that Jota went down injured and Bobby Madden played on. Pulled the ball back instead of playing on, and he seemed, not sure of what had happened to Gary Mackay-Steven when he was through on goal. Now, I don't know if you've seen that, but the replay show that he tripped over his own feet.
Right in front of me, and Nielsen said that's what Madden had told him.
Yeah, he fell over his own feet. He tripped over his own feet.
That's what I thought,
think Robbie Nielsen got a yellow card on the touchline for his moaning after that. So I think he's built himself up. He's built this all up in his own head tonight for me. I don't think there was anything too noteworthy about the refereeing performance tonight, other than the fact that Bobby Madden isn't the best referee in Scotland by any means at all.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, without sounding like Arsene Wenger, I've not seen these incidents. The Mackay-Steven one was right in front of me, and that was my impression, that he'd kind of tripped himself up and lost his own foot, and it certainly wasn't a penalty. And then I think it's Liam Boyce puts it wide of the post. But Robbie Nielsen wasn't too happy. He'd clearly calmed down a little bit when he came in and spoke to us. Carol Starfelt was doing press as well, so I got to speak to him and yeah, my question to him was to do with, the Celtic support. I asked him about the fans and the team being really close together, and Carol Starfelt says he's never played for a club like this. It's incredible, and he seemed really genuine with that. Didn't recognise me from Sunday when I got a photo with him. I did have my mask on though, so I won't take that one personally, Carol.
Starfelt must have been a happy man in that room, because he must have been buzzing after his performance, because I thought he was our best player in the park tonight.
Yeah, as I say, between him and Rogic, I thought the two players who came back. I thought generally tonight it was there was a few players that weren't at their best. I thought Callum McGregor had quite a poor game. I thought Turnbull kind of struggled at times. As I say, James Forrest I didn't think was great. Even Jota, kind of didn't have as much of an impact in games, but we had a Celtic team, months ago that couldn't win when they were playing poorly. And tonight, I think we probably had 5 or 6, maybe 7 players who were below average tonight. And we still beat the team who are third in the table, who have had a great start to the season. And I actually think Hearts are a pretty good team. I think John Souttar had a great game. Just the amount of blocks that guy makes, uses the ball really well. I think Barry Mackay, who's obviously a figure that people are going to talk about after tonight, had a good game as well. So they're a good side.
I'm a big fan of John Souttar. I have to admit. I'm a big fan of him. With him having a contract that's up at the end of the season, I would want Celtic to be in the conversation about bringing him in. Just to touch on the Barry Mackay stuff, I don't want to go over it too much, but obviously there was a couple of instances with stuff getting thrown at him from the stands. Idiotic, as there's no other way to say it. I mean, it was daft. I think it's especially daft in this current climate when there's a lot of scrutiny on security and safety at the club, and supporters are going out of their way to look out for other supporters. I think anyone who's thrown that tonight has kind of let themselves down and let other people down a bit. We'll not go over it too much. We'll not, wring our hands about it, but it's just one of those things that's out of order.
You won't be surprised to hear that it came up a lot in the various press conferences. To be fair, I don't think Ange was asked about it, because he would probably have bitten someone's head off if he was asked about it, but Robbie Nielsen certainly was, and he hadn't seen it at all. So yeah, got a good job tonight, I think. Really, really pleased with that. Another 3 points, and we go along to Sunday now. We're coming to John's hometown, and we're playing Dundee United. We won't have as many fans there. I know this one's kind of scaring you a wee bit, John.
Yeah, well, even more so after tonight, and not in terms of the performance, just this will be a tough game on Sunday. Especially with a couple of players maybe out. I know Carter Vickers is coming back, as he said earlier, but this is going to be a difficult game. It's going to be an interesting game, and I'm not worried about Tannadice because it's United or because we're going away. I'm just worried in general because I think this month is so difficult that every match is going to be a battle, and essentially every match might be on a knife edge this month. So I'm naturally got a bit of trepidation about everything. But if we show the battle and spirit of tonight, there's no reason why we can't and shouldn't. We should be picking up all 3 points. So, I'm not fearful in the sense of I definitely think we're going to get beat or draw. It's just another huge game, but that's what we want. As he said, this is what football's about. We want these big games. We want this feeling of being on edge as supporters. That's what it's all about.
As David would say, you don't get small games when you're a Celtic fan or a Celtic player. Every single game is huge, and bring it on. I'm loving every minute of it. Will we wrap it up there so I can head home? I probably won't get home till about 1 o'clock. The things I do for you wonderful fans of the channel.
Well, that was good, Hamish. It was good to see you get to a press conference after the game, something that the club have put in place. It was good to speak to you. Good to see everyone in the chat, as always. And we'll be back for more videos on the channel.
We should say, obviously, that full quotes from Starfelt and Ange will be on 67heelwheel.com, probably already on 67heelwheel.com.
Yeah. the way these things work is this press conference doesn't get broadcast, everyone. So it's kind of for written press sometimes. Sometimes the audio does get out there, but I don't think our audio is usable. So we will be writing up everything we heard from tonight's press conference on 67 Hail Hail tonight and tomorrow, and indeed over the next couple of days. So stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for more videos from Hamish, and we'll be back, for another live reaction at least on Sunday.
Good job hosting.
Cheers. Hail, hail, everyone. See you later.